If you have a computer with a webcam, chances are you use Skype. A great site for friends and family to chat, either through text, verbally, or face-to-face. Basically like an iPhone, but for your computer. But as well as talking with family and friends on Skype, there's also a chance you'll meet some new people there. And that's not always a good thing. Sometimes Skype calls can lead to disaster. Here's a collection of such instances of Skype terror. Skype me. It is a common theme for one to say that the years in middle school are ones of pure and unadulterated awkwardness, as we struggle to cope and develop into young adults capable of braving reality outside of school walls. Like most people, I would claim that my middle school years were that of a particularly awful experience. I fought to be both a conformist and a nonconformist, while trying to develop and maintain friendships I'd treasure in grades 1 through 5. My 7th and 8th year being particularly horrific due to the fact I went through that dreaded phase known on Tumblr as the roar means I love you in dinosaur and screamo metal music is my life, LOLs I'm so random and my hair is pink. Yeah, that phase. At the time I was an overweight, pimply child who had little to no self-confidence and thirsted for a member of the opposite sex to find me attractive. In the summer prior to 9th grade, I got my wish. But they say, be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. At the time, I was moving to a different state. My life was in shambles. My parents had just gotten a divorce, but in reality it was a blessing. My father was physically and emotionally abusive to my mother and I would have to be leaving the few people I truly cared about, and the only place I'd ever known as home. So one evening as I sat in my new house and fiddled around on Facebook, my small mailbox alit red informing me I'd gotten a message. It was a boy I'd gone to school with, though I never truly made it my effort to befriend him, because there was an age difference between us, and I was still horrifyingly awkward about conversation with those who were not in my friend group. Curious as to why he'd suddenly decided to strike conversation with the likes of me, I replied a simple greeting. That is when the worst 2 years of my life began to unfold. At first the boy seemed kind. We were both hideously awkward and had similar tastes. It was a pleasant friendship, but the sole communication was through Facebook Messenger. At the time, my cell phone rights were restricted due to the move, and I was 90% positive the boy didn't own a mobile phone, so we only spoke in the evenings when I was allowed computer privileges. Summer ended, as it always does, and school was back in session. I had finally begun to shed the weight I'd carried from childhood, and began thinning out. I allowed my hair to grow back after a horrendous mistake of cutting it to resemble a role model I liked, and dyed it back to a color that was considered normal. I began settling with a decent group of friends, and all was going well, until the boy's attitude turned sour. He'd been giving me the cold shoulder. At first I was hurt, but it couldn't be helped that I needed to devote my time to school more so than the internet. But he began to accuse me of using him, and till this day I have no clue as to what I used him for. After long messages of assurance, I finally settled him down and we continued our conversations as if nothing had happened. It was at this point I should have started noticing red flags. It was the night that I got my first webcam for my dated laptop that I regret most out of all the choices in my life. I installed Skype and made a Facebook status asking for contact names. Within seconds of that status, my notifications alit red with a comment. The boy had been the sole comment, and I, being the naive little twit I was, added him. I video chatted with the boy for 3 hours. Each time I would try to say my goodbyes, he changed the topic to direct me from ending the call. I felt rather uncomfortable with the entire event and felt true relief when the call finally ended. But that was just the start of it all. To this day, I find my skin crawling when I hear the Skype ding. I wish I could simply say that he was only able to contact me through Skype, but that is not the case. Back home, he was able to get my new cell phone number from a friend, who to this day still will not confess to doing so, and so began the constant calls and text messages from an array of numbers. Did you know that there are applications where a person is able to get a cell phone number and can phone and text for free? I didn't, and thus began the string of calls and texts. Stuff like, "I'm in love with you. I don't ever want you with someone else. I want you all to myself. Why don't you talk to me? Why don't you love me? You fucking bitch. God, you're such a slut. You're fat and ugly. No one but me will ever want you. I know where you live. How would you like it if I came and raped you right now? If you don't love me, I'm going to kill myself. The blood will be on your hands." These text messages and more went on for months. I couldn't sleep, I lost weight, I had no appetite. I went so far as to delete my Skype and Facebook accounts, but nothing seemed to work. It was a miserable lifestyle. Even still, I refused to tell my parents. They suspected I was being troubled, but had absolutely no idea of the harassment. Each time I heard a phone ring, even if it wasn't my own, I would crumble into a trembling mass of tears and anxiety. Okay, maybe not every time, but even still, my blood would run cold and I'd have troubles breathing. Eventually, my mother cornered me, demanding an explanation. I came clean, playing her a particularly hostile voicemail where he threatened to spread my contact information on Omegle. My mother was furious. She snatched my cell phone and called him. She snarled a threat and then called the police. A restraining order was put into place, and I again changed my cell phone number